Hello, you beautiful people. All right, and today we are doing network mapping. So what does that mean? It means, well, what you should be doing before you actually sit down and build your network. Because if you just dive in and just say, oh, I'm just going to do this now. We just have to get up and running. We need to, start making some money. And it's just like, yes, you do, but this doesn't take long. This is like an afternoon of planning, right? So I did a little speech on subnetting, but you're going to see subnetting fleshed out a little bit more here. And this helps you keep things organized and makes it all that easier when you're interconnecting multiple networks, which we will get into in another demonstration video. So today's purpose in this video is to show you how to do a simple network map. And I'm just gonna wing it, okay, as I usually do, because I'm ADHD and I don't have good planning abilities. I know how to structure things. So let's get out into business. What we're gonna use today, and you can use Visio. Sorry about the squeaky chair, by the way. I'm working on improving things all the time, as you know. Piss me off. Okay, so anyway, just deal with it. Today we're going to use a free app because most of the stuff that I do is using open source and free stuff because, we're not all rich. And a lot of my target audience are people who are in areas where they're not financially advanced, I guess you could say. So I'm trying to teach you guys in those areas that aren't wealthy on how to get by without, using Visio and stuff that you can't afford. Plus, it also just helps to save money wherever you can when you're building a WISP, okay? So what we've got here is draw.io. I'm going to open a new tab and do it. Watch. Draw.io. Oh, I hope it doesn't pick up the keyboard that easily the whole time. So here we go. We're going to create a new diagram, and I'm just going to, we're going to call this one, yes, I'm experimenting with recording. I've got a different microphone. Apparently it can pick up my keyboard, so I apologize. Again, working on things. Okay, and we'll just save this to wherever. Just save it here. Okay, we'll save that there. Okay, here we go. So we've got our fresh workspace now. Don't show that again. Screw you. No! Oh my god. I hate marketing. Okay, so here we go. We've got a fresh screen. I'm going to hit F11 so I can go full screen so there's not many distractions. And now I'm just going to zoom in a little bit. So we've got our basic map here, okay? So here's our workspace. So when you're building a network out, you need to plan a few things, first of all. And by the way, I'm just going to drop my internet provider right here. My wholesale provider. There we go. So that's the internet right there. I want to make this really easy. I hope that you guys can see this well. There we go. Okay, so that guy's there. All right, so now I'm just going to stick a little box somewhere. We can move this box around. The nice thing about this is that we can move it around. So now I'm going to come up with the subnet scheme. So what I want to do is, and I'll explain this to you. So when you're doing your subnetting, we'll do this big first. So that's really, really easy to understand. Just go 14. So when you're doing your subnet scheme, what I like to do is use there's a couple of octets. The first octets are kind of a fixed point in time, I guess you could say, whereas the rest of them vary depending on the subnet that you're using. Like with 10 base, it's 10.0.0.0/8. So you can use all three following octets on a 10. On the 100.64 range, I believe that is /12. So there's only so much space you can use within that, which is where you have to come into consideration. So for today's demonstration, I'm just going to arbitrarily call this network number 80. Okay, and you don't have to put this in, you don't have to put this on your map. It's just, this is what we're going to designate it. And this, you'll see why shortly. And this is really helpful if you're working with consultants or consulting firms, because we all work with different subnets per network. And the reason why we want to have this is that when I do my demonstration on having multiple networks that are connected together remotely, you'll see why. Okay, so here we go. So first of all, we need to come up with our designation. I'm going to teach you the subnetting scheme that I have just learned and prefer to use myself. Okay, and this is based on what a lot of different people do. So first of all, we know that we're going to call this network 80. So we're going to go 10.80. So you see, because 10 is a fixed designation, it's going to be 10. And then 80 is going to be our network designation. The rest of them are pretty much wildcards, except watch. This is going to be our router ID. I'll put this in front. Equals, here we go, 10.80.255.x. So we're going to use the 255 octet specifically to designate that that's for the router, the actual loopback IDs, okay? So that's going to allow us to have 200 towers out there, 200 sites, and you'll see what I mean in a minute. Next up, the management designations. Okay, so we're going to do our OSPF point-to-point. So we're going to start that one at 200. So we'll go 10.80.200.x. So now we can use this for 10.80. Up to 254.x. So we can use that entire range there specifically for point to point, and we're keeping things nice and tidy and organized. You see that the second octet has not yet changed. Now what about management? So last mile management. Yeah, I'm gonna add that to the dictionary because I really like using it like that. Sorry. All right, so we're gonna, the last mile here is gonna be 10.80.x.x. Okay, and you'll see in a second what I mean. Okay, and so in this case here, the third octet identifies the tower. And when I say tower, that means tower or site, okay? This will make more sense once I start rolling it out, okay? Now, next one. This is the most important one. The customer subnet, because most of you guys are going to be running CGNAT, okay? So with CGNAT in place, CGNAT, of course, allows you to save public IP space, and then you can throw in more public IPs where customers need them. There is a video that I've got coming up on how to distribute public IPs within your network, so keep an eye out for that, okay? Okay, so back to this. Here we go. Okay, so this one's going to be 100.80.x.x, and this is the same thing. The third octet identifies the tower, okay? I'm just gonna, these ones up here, they're kind of an arbitrary thing. Or not arbitrary, they're fixed, right? So we'll just change the font color on this to be a nice dark blue. Yeah, there we go, that's nice. And then down here, we'll make these guys a nice dark green. So just so that makes a lot of sense to you guys. Okay, and this one here, I'm gonna underline this. There we go. Where's my underline? There you go. That's cool, eh? Although I feel like I should make that just... Here we go. We're gonna just change the color on that one. Make that one red as a notation. Make it a nice dark red. There we go. Okay, so this is our designations, okay? And since this isn't going to be a massive map that I'm building for you guys, I'm just going to stick it up here in the corner, and we shall begin. All right, so draw.io is a really cool free program for, you know, whatever. You know, it's a diagram program. So now we need some routers, right? Watch this. Up here in the top left, you can search for items. Let's look for a router. What do we got here? We got all sorts of options for routers. We can also use gateway. See, all sorts of awesome devices in here that you can choose from for your map. So since we are going to be just doing routers basically along here, I'm just going to drag one out here. So this is going to be, and look at how the lines allow you to align things, right? So I'm going to try to get this along the middle. So our middle is right there. I want it, there we go, it's square. So this is going to be router number 1. So this is going to be our gateway. This is actually the main border network. Some people call it border, some people call it the edge router. This is the gateway router, okay? And I'm just using gateway as a standard designation that most of you guys will recognize. So seeing as this is the first router on the network, we're going to go 10.80.255.1. That's the router ID, okay? Okay. Now, the next ID that we're IP range we're going to have is the management. 10.80.1.1/24. Okay? 0/24. And that's the management. There we go. So that's a, oh, here we go. And now, last mile customer NAT. Okay, 100.80.1.0/24. So that should make a lot of sense to you guys now. So now we've got this. So this is our first router. It's connecting up to the internet, right? So we're going to do our little line here. I'm just going to click on a line and this thing will drag it out for me, like so. I use hard lines. Actually, I could just go like this. I use hard lines for fixed connections, and I use dotted lines to represent wireless connections. So there is our internet, our upstream, okay? And then here's our router subnetting. And now if you want to notate this, because your upstream will probably give you an IP range, a designation that you can use, like a /30 as an example. So we'll go 74.29.183.1, or we'll go .0/30, and that'll allow you to understand what the subnet is that's operating as your point-to-point interface here. All right, so now we need some routers. Okay, so we got some tower sites, so watch this. I'm just gonna drag one of these guys down here. I'm gonna go Control-C, Control-V, V, 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 V. There we go, we got a ton of routers that we can work with now. So I'm just gonna willy-nilly, there is no rhyme or reason or plan that I have here. I'm just gonna place these guys all randomly across the network so that it somewhat resembles an actual WISP network, okay? Here. So here we go, we've got our routers now, okay? I'm gonna try to space them so that I can make this map nice and orderly. Not ornery. There we go. Oh, and by the way, I am trying to make this as entertaining as possible, but when I do this sort of stuff, I focus a bit, so my jokes and shit are going to be a little bit more difficult to get out there. I need to get a studio, sorry. Okay, so here's our main gateway router. Okay, so now let's set up our designations roughly, okay? All right, so right here we've got, we're going to connect wirelessly to this tower here, and you can do this in whatever order you want. Here we go, by the way, Control-C, Control-V, V, V, V. There we go. Okay, and these lines don't necessarily have to be literal unless you specifically want to keep track of your interfaces in a visual manner like this. This is supposed to be a general overview of your network, so before you actually start programming it and rolling it out, that it's really simple to understand, you know? We'll just hang this one off of here as an example. That'll be a cool idea. I'll just do that, yeah. We'll do that. So, pretty cool. I like this, yeah. Let me drop it down now, just for easy sake. Okay, so now we've got a few more towers to connect here. And these connections represent actual physical connections from site to site. Or sorry, you know, connections. Not necessarily physical. You know, wireless because it's dotted. Because that's how WISP works. You distribute your shit wirelessly, okay? I need a couple more lines. Here we go. And that's an... Oh! I forgot. Turns out that this tower here can actually connect back to this tower here. Let's throw a fancy pants into the mix, okay? All right, so here is an overview of how our network looks. This is physically what our network looks like, okay? This is a representation of how the network's going to be built. So if you guys have already built your network and you've got to do your network map yet, this is what you're going to do. You're going to literally represent your network like so, okay? And in that process as well, you'll know where all the links are and stuff. And if you're about to build your network, you're probably only going to have 1 or 2 towers. You just start with the 1 or 2 towers that you plan to do. This is planning, okay? And then you'll set up your subnets in that, and this will basically give you a roadmap that you can use, an actual literal reference that you can use for the purposes of keeping track of things. And it makes it a lot easier, you know, than winging it, and it keeps things organized, right? Okay, so now we've got this. Okay, so I'm going to designate this one arbitrarily Tower 2, Tower 3, Tower 4. So now we're going to add that stuff, okay? I'm going to double click in here and it should allow me to type. Here we go. So this is, and by the way, I'll get into how to name a site later, but this is, let's call this one Canary Ranch, for example. So this is going to be 10.80.255.2. And INSO 10.80.2.0/24 for management. So you guys have some consistency, right? And then customer net 100.80.2.0. Now you're starting to see the pattern, okay? So now what are we going to do with the next one? Let's do the same thing here. I'm going to do, and by the way, if you double click on it, you'll be allowed to set up a text box within it. You can also, for this one here, because of where it is, I'm actually just going to do a text box next to it just to show you how to do that. I'm going to double click and it allows me to create a text box here. So we'll call this one Hillside, or actually, why don't I call it Cliffside, in reference to one of my favorite cartoons ever. Okay, here we go. So this one's going to be 10.80.255.3, right? And 10.80.3.0/24 and 100.80.3.0/24. So those are our subnets here now. And you see, because it's a text box, I can float it. So I'm just gonna stick it right here. And if we ever have to actually move a tower underneath it, I can literally just take this and stick it on the side like so, right? And there's our reference lines for pointing things. So let's go to our third tower here. And I'm gonna do the same thing over here. I'm gonna create a text box. And this one we're gonna call Dump Road. Okay, and we'll go 10.80.255.4, like so. And 10.80.4.0/24 and 100.80.4.1, or 0, sorry, /24. So now we'll have our label in here for this one. And so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so let's do the next one. So I'm just going to arbitrarily label these guys. Let's do another one here. Text. Okay, so this one's going to be, what are we going to call it? Toggle truck. Okay, so here we go. 10.80.255.5, 10.80.5.0/24, and 100.80.5.0/24. All right, so there we go. So that's that there. Next one. What's this one going? Oh, that line, that freaks me out. There we go. All right. So now this one here, let's call it Gator Ranch. Okay. Okay, here's Gator Ranch. And what's the next one? This is going to be 7. Okay, and we're gonna, what's this one? Okay, this is gonna be on Atkin Road, we'll call it. Atkin Road East, okay. 10.80.255.7. 10.80.7.0/24. 100.80.7.0/24. There we go. I'm just gonna roll my screen back because it keeps moving. There we go. We're almost onto the juicy parts, by the way. All right, so now let's call this one, let's use another road name. Let's call it Magnetic Road, or Lodestone Road. Okay. 10.80.255.8. 10.80.8.0/24. And 100.80.8.0/24. Alright, so we've got our map labeled. So these are the subnets that are going to be present at each tower. So we're going to go like this. And I'm going to be showing you guys how to program routers shortly too, and how to do OSPF. Alright, so there we go. So there's this one. Okay, so this map is now saved. There's our network overview. Now, you're probably wondering, where does the OSPF point-to-point come in? Well, let me show you that, actually. So now, let's start here. So this is our first tower, second tower, third tower, right? So now we need our OSPF designations here. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to double-click on this line, and we're going to continue on with, we're going to use /29s now for this, so watch this. Now, the reason why we use a /29, and I'll demonstrate this now. So you've got your 2 routers, right? All right, we're going to do this like so. This is how I do my point-to-points, and it makes so much sense to me. All right, let's step this up a bit to 150, so it's a little bit bigger. Maybe a little bit bigger. I just want to go a little bit bigger. There we go. Okay, so we've got our 2 tower sites, okay? There we go. And now we need our radios. Here we go. So I'm going to put one dish here, and then I'm going to copy this, but the second one here, I'm going to flip it. Okay, so where do I flip that again? We click over here. I can hear you guys screaming out, you go over here and do it. So I'm clicking on arrange and flip horizontally. There we go. I'm going to put these a little bit closer together. Okay, so you've got your transit, transport, blah, blah, blah. I'll explain those in another video when I understand them a little bit better. All right, so here's our literal link right here. Or sorry, this is our OSPF link. Okay, so we're going to do our general overview here, and this is representing the first link. So OSPF point-to-point, okay? So we're going 10.80.200.0/29, okay? Like so. So that is our OSPF point-to-point right there. That's the subnet we're going to use, and you'll see why in a second. Now, here is the literal link, okay? Watch this. So we're going to go like so to this dish, okay? And then we're going to do the same thing with this guy here. And I'll be covering this more in the OSPF video that I've got coming up, by the way. There we go. So there is the literal link here. I'm going to do the literal link in green. So I'm just going to hold Control and select all those, okay? And I'm going to click on here, and I'm going to make this a nice dark green. Come on, let me do it. Do I do it under style? I do it under style, sorry. I make mistakes too.
Because I'm human.
Sort of. I tell people I'm a human. Okay, let's do this. And then this one is going to be a blue because it's representing the, basically the transport across the transit. I should say transit, transport. Transport's the top, transit's the bottom, essentially. Correct me if I'm wrong. Okay, so now that we've got this in place, I'm going to show you how we're going to do the IPs for these guys now. And I'm going to float these IPs because, as you can see, the space here is limited, so watch. Router 1 will be 10.80.200.1/29, okay? So that's this router right here. And then the next router is going to be 10.80.200.2/29, right? So this is the router, the router's point-to-point IPs, right? So this is for the 2 routers to talk to each other. That's how they do that, essentially. They go like, actually, I should put this in here and make more sense. So they talk to each other with those 2 IPs. So 1 talks to 2, 2 talks to 1. That's the OSPF session itself. Now, what allows these 2 links to connect together was called the backhaul, which is these guys right up top here. So they need IP addresses as well. So let's do that. So now here's the method that I use. 10.80.200.3/29, and it's gateway. So this is device IP. Okay, and then it's gateway equals 10.80.200.1. Okay, and I'll explain that in just a second. So here's the radio's IP right here. I'm gonna do another one over here for this one. So this one will be 10.80.200.4/29, okay? And let's see here. You already have the designation over there. Basically, just look for that for reference, whatever. Okay, so 10.80.200.2/29. Or, sorry, nope, subnet. Getting distracted. ADHD. Okay, so here we go. So this should make sense now. So I'm going to put these guys a little bit closer to the line. So now, this is how I subnet between towers. And remember, when it comes to a /29, 6 usable IPs, 8 total IPs, usable, or actually, absolute equals 0 through 7 here, like so, okay? .0 through .7, and that would be, yeah, well, actually, I don't need to flesh that out, okay? Usable equals .1 through .6. Okay, and this gets more into subnetting, which I'm not going to get into in this video, but once your mask and once your domain, okay? And your domain's where all the cool stuff happens in layer 2. So now let's go back to this part here, which is an important part that I'm trying to explain to you guys on point to point. So the two routers talk directly to each other using these IPs here. Okay, so they're going to be using these two IPs to talk to each other. There we go. And we're going to make those guys, why don't we make them a nice red? Here we go. So these are the IP addresses that the routers use to talk to each other for OSPF. So this router here is communicating with .1 here, and this router here is communicating with .2. These guys are not actually part of the OSPF section. They're part of the transport layer. All that their purpose is to carry the traffic, like the data from site to site, and then this is the transit layer right here. Okay? So now, these guys are talking, but what about these guys? And what about the IP address references on here? So now here's the thing. This guy here is .3, so it's 10.80.200.3, and it's on the /29. There are two IPs that we're not using in here, but who cares? But its gateway is actually this router here. So why don't I go to style here, and I'll change the colors on these two guys. So let's make them red, okay? I think I could do that. Fill, let's do the fill. Let's do the fill in like a red. Okay, there we go. So these two guys here, this dish here is utilizing this router here that's physically connected to as its gateway. And this one here is the same thing. It's using the router that it is directly connected to. Blah, make fun of my Linglish. It's using the router that it's connected directly to as its gateway. Now the reason why we do that is like so. If something happens to this connection here, right? Like if this radio link goes down, let's just take this away completely like so. We'll just delete this, okay? So this radio link goes down, right? And then all of a sudden, we have no connectivity between this site. What'll happen is that if you go to this site and you plug a laptop into it, you'll still be able to pick this, access this radio here for troubleshooting purposes. You won't have to unplug it. You'll be routed to it. Same thing with this radio here. If you go to this site and plug in, you'll have direct access to this through the routing table present on that gateway that it's on, okay? That's the purpose of doing it this way. So you're keeping the whole point-to-point session within one broadcast domain. You're keeping it also within one small subnet, the smallest subnet that's usable here. Instead of a /30 having 3 /30s, which occupies 12 IPs, you've got one /29, which only occupies 8. So that saves you 4 IP addresses, okay? So you're reducing the amount of routes in your routing table as well as saving IPs. So instead of having like 3 times the routes, you're reducing each point-to-point session to 1 subnet, which means 1 entry in the routing table. Whereas again, if you use /30s, there are 3 point-to-point IPs used for a single point-to-point path. So this is a far more efficient way to do it. So let's label this now. Oh my god, I hope that keyboard sound doesn't make you guys nuts. I am so sorry. I'm still working out the details, okay? So here we go. We're gonna put back our point-to-point here, and we're getting pretty close to being finished the demonstration, folks. Okay, and by the way, every time you make a change in draw.io, it saves it for you. Isn't that handy? So now that I've explained that, let's go back to doing the point-to-point links, and I'll do my examples here. Okay, so 10.80.200.0/29, okay? And because we're jumping by 8, and I can demonstrate that really easily by bringing this up here. I'm gonna just put a window here. And for those guys who have asked about it before, look, online subnet calculator. This is what I use to cheat. So we're going to go class A, and we're going to change this because we only want 6 IPs per subnet. So look, this actually demonstrates it for you. Here's a /29. It's 1 to 6, and 7's the last one, which means that on the next one, watch, the next one, the subnet ID is 8, and the broadcast address is 15. So we'd actually start at 9 to 14 on the next one. So it's nice because it's a base 8, you can just keep climbing like so, watch. You know that it's going to be 8, 16, 24, like so, right? Neat. So watch this now. So there's our first point-to-point there. So this is the representation from this router here to this router. So we're gonna change all these guys so that they have a common color. Make it well, no, I can't do that. Sorry, I can't do that because that's gonna complicate things for you. Sorry about my cats. All right, so from router 1 to router 2, this is gonna be the point-to-point address, okay? And we'll go back to this example again for a second so you can briefly look at it, pause if you want. That's how we're programming it. Router to router, router to radio, router to router, router to radio, okay? That's how we do that. So now let's go back to the main overview. Okay, so now we need to go to the next one in order, right? And I showed you guys, we're jumping by 8s. So the next subnet is going to be 10.80.200.8/29. And the next one is going to be 16. So 10.80.200.16/29, okay? And then the next one's going to be 24. 10.80.200.24, okay? We're counting by 8s here. 10.80.200.32, okay? /29. The 24 part screwed me up, sorry, because, like, you know, that's a subnet mask, it can be, it's common. Okay, and then the next one will be 40. And the next one's going to be 48. Like so, right? And see how easy it is to set these guys up? And once you've got your network map set up, like I showed you guys, it's really easy to just breeze through the actual programming because you've got everything laid out before you. There's no guesswork as to what you're going to do next. You've always got a reference to go to for labeling your network, okay? Really cool. And something else as well is I like to verify things before I actually save them because, you know, we're all human and I make tons of mistakes myself.
Because I'm human.
And so that's why I always verify my work. Online subnet calculator, let's see here. So let's make sure that I'm not on crack and that I'm doing the proper progressions. Okay, so we're gonna go, our mask bits here, 29, okay, right? So we know that this is 1 to 6, and then the next one's gonna start at 8, so 9, so let's go 9. So yes, 15 is the last one, so we know 16 is the next, so let's go 17, okay? Which means that the next one starts at 24, so 25, and then we know that the next one is 32, right? So we're gonna go 33, and we've got 38, 39 is the last one, so the next one's 40. Right, which ends at 47. So the next one's going to be 48. So we put in 49, which is the first usable, right? And we can see that 56 is the next one. Isn't that cool? So, whoops, hold on a second. We'll go 57 because 56 is the next. So yeah, so there we go. 57 is 62. So that's how we verified everything. So now you guys can see this is how you build your network map. And remember, today's video is simply to teach you how to do a basic network map. And this will help you. This will help you keep things clean, organized, and especially easy if you're trying to interconnect multiple sites. And as a WISP, there's going to be a strong chance you're going to build one network, not be able to get to another area, build another network, and want to interconnect them for management and functionality. This is the process to it, okay? And so now here's the point-to-point example again. That's all you guys need to know. This is your basic subnetting. And here's some tips, by the way. When I start programming, I do this, okay? So when I start programming the OSPF, every time that I make a major change in the subnet scheme per tower, I'll change the overall color. And there's some nice little palette up here that you can use. So I'll go blue, I'll pick a nice blue when I've reached the next step, right? So let's just say that I just finished programming all these guys, right? So I can click on the blue here. And now let's say all this stuff's done and this part of the network is completed. These guys are definitely programmed and I verified the changes, then I can do this. Green. Green means that they're done. They're verified and completed. So now let's just say that this one and this one here, I've partially programmed them, right? I'll leave them on blue because they're not done yet, right? And let's say that I've completed this one. Okay, cool. Whoops, I keep doing that, sorry. I can click green here and there you go, that one's done. This one here, it's not done yet. I haven't touched it, so it's still orange. That's just a little tip for you. So that's a general network map diagram overview and how to complete it and how to flesh it out, see? So it's not that difficult. You know, I just realized I did this. I'm gonna fix this, by the way. Back to blue, and then that's the fill. There we go, now make this one red again. There we go. That's nice. All right, so there you go, guys. I hope that this video was helpful. I'm going to leave you with that for now. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. Be civil. If you guys want to squabble about things, please don't. And don't forget, like and subscribe. Tell your friends. And if you like the content that I'm producing, please subscribe to my Patreon. You know, $1 a month from each one of you guys really helps to contribute to the improvement of the videos and the equipment that I'm using to make the videos. Eventually, I want to have a little bit of a space to work in. Plus, it helps feed me. So, if you guys like my content, please subscribe to my Patreon. Well, thanks a lot, guys. I hope you guys appreciate the video today. And, yes, we'll catch you later. Ciao for now.